Imagine a courtroom where your guilt or innocence was decided not by evidence or witnesses, but by how fast you could hold your breath underwater. Welcome to the bizarre world of medieval trial by ordeal. In the Middle Ages, justice wasn't about lawyers or judges as we know them. Instead, people believed divine powers would reveal the truth. One of the strangest methods was the trial by water, especially the ordeal of cold water. The accused would be tied up and thrown into a river or pond. If they floated, it meant the water was rejecting them. They were considered guilty. If they sank and held their breath, they were innocent, though often at great risk of drowning. This practice was rooted in the idea that pure water would accept the innocent and reject the guilty. Another popular ordeal was trial by fire, where the accused had to carry a red-hot iron or walk over burning coals. Their wounds were bandaged and examined days later. If healing well, they were innocent. If infected, guilty. These methods sound crazy today, but back then, they were seen as the ultimate justice system, blending superstition with law. The ordeals reflected a time when science was limited, and people looked to divine judgment for truth. Interestingly, these trials often favored the innocent because many guilty people confessed early to avoid such deadly tests. Over time, the church and legal systems grew uneasy with these dangerous rituals, leading to their decline by the 13th century. So next time you think your modern court system is flawed, remember a time when your fate might have depended on how long you could hold your breath underwater or how badly you burned yourself. What if justice was really just a test of survival skills? But the story of trial by ordeal goes even deeper. These rituals were not random. They were deeply embedded in the medieval mindset, where the spiritual and the temporal were intertwined. People believed that God's hand guided the outcome, and that divine intervention would prevent injustice. The idea was that God would protect the innocent from harm and reveal the guilty through suffering or failure. This faith in divine judgment was a reflection of the era's worldview, where religion permeated every aspect of life, including law and order. The trial by water, for example, was symbolic. Water was considered a pure element, capable of cleansing and revealing truth. If the accused floated, it was thought that the water rejected them because of their sin, while sinking meant acceptance and innocence. Yet from a modern perspective, this was clearly flawed. The physics of buoyancy and body composition, rather than guilt or innocence, determined the outcome. Similarly, the trial by fire was based on the belief that God's grace would heal the innocent. The wounds inflicted by hot iron or burning coals were treated and monitored over several days. If the injuries healed cleanly, it was taken as a sign of innocence. If infection set in, guilt was presumed. This method was as much a test of the body's natural healing ability, and the care received as it was a spiritual judgment. These ordeals were not the only forms of medieval justice. Others included trial by combat, where two parties fought, often to the death, and the winner was declared right, and the ordeal of the cross, where the accused had to hold up their arms in a cross shape for as long as possible. Each test was a blend of physical endurance, chance, and faith. What's fascinating is how these practices reflected the society's struggle to establish order and fairness with limited tools and knowledge. The lack of forensic science, reliable witnesses, or investigative procedures left communities desperate for a way to resolve disputes and assign blame. Trial by ordeal, flawed as it was, provided a structured if brutal method for doing so. Over time, these methods began to fall out of favor. The church, initially supportive because it linked justice with divine will, started to question the morality and effectiveness of such practices. Moreover, as legal systems evolved and rational thought gained ground during the late medieval period, more evidence-based approaches to justice developed. The introduction of juries, legal representation, and written laws gradually replaced the need for supernatural tests. By the 13th century, trial by ordeal was largely abolished, primarily due to decrees from the church which forbade clergy from participating in these ceremonies, effectively ending their practice. Despite their decline, the legacy of trial by ordeal remains a powerful reminder of humanity's historical quest for justice. It shows how deeply people once relied on faith and symbolism to make sense of right and wrong, and how the pursuit of fairness has evolved over centuries. Today, our courts are far from perfect, but they rest on principles of evidence, reason, and human rights, rather than chance or divine intervention. Reflecting on these ancient rituals can deepen our appreciation for the progress made and the importance of continual improvement in our justice systems. So next time you hear about a trial or a court case, remember the eerie image of the accused being thrown into cold water or forced to walk through fire. It's a stark contrast to modern-day procedures, yet it speaks volumes about the human desire for truth and fairness, no matter the era. What if justice was really just a test of survival skills? In the end, trial by ordeal is a fascinating chapter in the story of law, one that reveals the complex relationship between culture, belief, and the rule of law throughout history.